Bryan, you look woefully unprepared to shoot today. Well, that's because if you know what I do for a living, and many of you by now know what we do for a living, we're illusionists who travel and normally do 150, 180 days a year on the road performing. We get in traffic and travel situations sometimes. So I'm recording this later than I would have liked to based on scheduling because, hey, the interstate decided to back up for hours yesterday. But who needs that? We're not talking about that. We're talking about a different path, a different road, a different trail, if you will. Thank you. Basically, what we're talking about today is a game called Trails. Now, in fact, the two videos I'm shooting back to back right now are distilled versions of bigger games. Number one is Trails, and then you can look again, see the Ares expedition for Terraforming Mars. But Trails is a distilled version of Parks. Is it fair to say that it's a trimmed down version of Parks? Well, yes, it is. It really has the same mechanics of moving along the path. Does it do anything different to where if you already own Parks, do you need Trails? Let's dive in and take a look right now and see if that's the case. So this is Trails right here. Let's see how this one plays. So here is the game of Trails. Now it is very similar looking to Parks. Now you'll notice that these things are badges as opposed to actual theme parks, national parks that you're trying to take trips to. There are resources. You've got things like acorns, stones, and leaves, all sorts of things like this. That's what these are. Now they don't look like the little cutouts anymore, but that's okay because the game's price point obviously is different than the major game Parks. But there are 4 players here you can choose from. We've got the really muted colors here of those to choose from, and then there's brown. What you're going to do on your turn is you're going to essentially move 1 to 2 spaces away. Now you will always have a private badge over here that you can complete at the right time. When you complete your private one, you can get a public one. On your turn, when you hit one of these spaces that show the badges, you can always complete 1 or 2. Actually, I need to make this right. You can always complete 1 of your private ones and 1 of the public ones that are up there. So you can do 2 badges at a time like that. So what's going to happen is you're going to move and collect resources. So this is trade a resource in to gain a photograph. Now photographs sometimes have points, but they also have birds on them. At the end of the game, the person with the most birds scores the most birds points. If it's tied, each player scores 4 points. So it's a good way to get more points. This collects you an acorn, this collects you a stone, that one lets you trade in, and don't be fooled, it's not brown for any 2, it's any 1 for any 2. Trust me, I looked it up, pretty confusing looking if you look just straight at it. Then you've got gain a leaf. Now this one is interesting. It is also gain a badge, but unlike Parks in which you have 2 workers, you're gonna go hike back and forth along a trail. Because as we know, if you were hiking on a real trail and you hike to something, you do in fact have to, it's not a real word. What it is, but it's the bottom of a sword. Have to hike back, right? Anyway, forget it. Haft, isn't that the bottom of a sword? I don't know. Regardless, that is not why you're here. What you're here for is this. Now, what happens is you then can cash in your resources. There's a resource limit, by the way. You can cash in your resources to gain these badges. Now, the one that you have privately or one of the ones sitting here. Now, notice they have symbols in the top left. These flags will have to do with certain things down here. So as this says, cost 1 less leaf for each leaf flag or tag you have here. So let's just say that I already had this one. Well, then this one would only cost 2 as opposed to the normal 3 because of that. That one's a victory point per leaf tag at the end of the game. Therefore, this is 2. So there's ways to get bonus points with these. Some of them are just flat points. Others are points plus. So interesting ways to do that. When you cash in your private one, you'll immediately draw another private one over here. So all sorts of different things to choose from, and they obviously all cost different things. So this one will give you 3 points plus 2 acorns immediately. Now, you're going to keep doing that, but the other thing you'll notice here is this sunset. So each time someone hits this space, this action, you'll take the action here to gain the stuff, and then the sunset will move. When it does, you take the immediate bonus, show them there. When it moves off of a tile, you flip one over, except for this one, because this one doesn't flip, it's the trail end. Let's just say it moves off of here. So normally you would get a leaf, but when it's nighttime, start getting 2 leaves, ironically, even though it's harder to see. You then keep going, they'll all flip over. This one becomes trade 1 for the other 2. So it's 1 for 2 as opposed to 1 for any other 2 now. This becomes 2 stones, 2 acorns, and this one I believe is just straight up get a free picture. So when the sun passes all the way down to the end of the game, that's when the game triggers. The end of game triggers. You finish the round, players will then check to see who has the most points. One other thing to notice, there's a bear on the trail. Charles, that's mixing two different wizards. Anyway, point being is this. When you land on the bear, you roll the bear dice or the wildlife dice. It could be a fox, it could be a squirrel, it could be a marmot, we don't know. Whatever it gets, you'll move the bear there and then you will take that benefit, which is pretty awesome if you think about it. So you get some benefits just from rolling the bear. The bear can be manipulated because you could essentially move it with this one to a location away from where your other person can't get it. There's no way they can get it at that point. So pretty interesting stuff. You also can spin your canteen to move as far forward as you want. So that's how you play parks. Excuse me, that's how you play trails. It's very simple, it's very easy, but it's a neat, quick worker movement, worker placement, worker movement type game in which you can get people into getting points quickly. Plus, you gotta love that art. So that's how Trails plays. Now, is the question on your mind is, do you need both of these? Let me answer that at the end of the video, obviously. First of all, let's break down everything we normally do. Art. Game looks beautiful. It's a beautiful looking game. Components. Do I like the components as much as this is Parks? Well, no, this is not a comparison video, but I'm just saying that I don't like the cubes as much, but I do understand the price point is $20 for this game. How about the mechanics, the worker placement? I do like the idea of moving along the path and moving along this trail, moving back and forth along the trail and getting these badges as you go. It's actually really thematic. If you've ever gone to a national park and you've done one of the kind of junior ranger things when you were a kid, like I did, yeah, I know I sounded super nerdy when I said, well, like I did actually, but what I mean by that is I love it. It's fun. I'm not that outdoorsy nowadays, but when I was a kid, we went to Devil's Tower and stuff like that. I was a junior ranger, all this stuff. It's cool. But it feels like that. It feels like you're traveling and collecting and making and marking. Oh, we saw this, we did this, and now we collected this badge. So it really does fit that feel, even though it's a simple moving your worker along the path and moving your worker back sort of game. Now, I do think that it's a little simplistic in the sense that you're just collecting 3 resources and just getting photographs, and that's really it. You're planning ahead. I get it. That's what Parks is too, but Parks has a little bit more thought manipulation in the fact that you have 2 workers. This one, you're going forward and then back, and in your mind you go, if I don't pick it up this time, I'll pick it up next time. But then you also think, well, wait a minute. If I move to the end and that sun moves, I'm losing time. I need to be able to buy a badge every single time. So there is some thought manipulation in that of what you have to do for your turn, but at the end of the day, mechanics-wise, I do like Parks a little bit better. Again, not a comparison video, but I do like this one enough to where it's a fun game. Now, would you keep both in your collection if you already had Parks? Here's the question, okay? They both have 2 different applications, and that's really what matters. This has 2 different applications. Number one, this plays so much smaller on the table. It's not, I mean, Parks is not huge, but this is even smaller. This could be played, the reason you get this, if you want a worker placement style game, first of all, it's easy to introduce people. It's very easy to introduce people to this game. The mechanics are very simple and very sound. If you want to do that, then you would definitely pick this one up. If, however, you wanted to play it also in an airport or somewhere like that, this is perfect for that. This fits in a backpack really easy. Throw it in, throw it on the table at the Chipotle right there in the Baltimore airport area. That's a tight area. You know what I'm talking about. You can play right there. You can do it anywhere. Like, that's what I like about this game. Whereas I would not take Parks and just play it in the middle of the airport. I would play this one in the middle of the airport all day. So yes, I do think you could own both of these, if not for price point alone. It's a $20 game that intros people into the worker movement placement genre. So in my mind, I think it's a win just that it exists, right? That there's something like this that exists. So I'm going to say yes, definitely pick up Parks. It's Trails. It's a great game. It's very simple though. So if you're into heavier games, you might think, I'd really like something with a little more meat on the bone. That's fine. For me, this one would stay in the collection. I walked past it at Target and I just picked it up and immediately bought it and thought I would review it here. So I'm excited about this game. I like it a lot. I like playing it. I like how smooth it is. I do wish it had a little bit more meat on the bone for me at times, but I get why it exists. So that is Trails. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until then, I'm Dice Tower Bryan on Twitter, Instagram, all that. We'll see you.